Reforms are underway at the National Health Insurance Fund for the umpteenth time. The government plans to overhaul the management as well as administration of the fund. And this is geared to make the NHIF a medical insurer of choice for the common man. And it is expected to play a critical role in the attainment of universal health care coverage by the year 2030. And we are talking about how many years from now? That's about 7 years from now. But what do we need to do, or which button do we need to press to bring about change at the National Health Insurance Fund, which was started way back in 1966? And the other question is, as currently constituted, is NHIF ready and well positioned to play that part? Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. I have told you things in the past. I'm repeating today that this is the most intelligent conversation this side of Sahara. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You're right on time for the scorecard. And our conversation tonight will revolve around re-engineering and repositioning the National Health Insurance Fund. I have an array of experts in the house who are going to guide us in this conversation. Plus, the wonderful Marie Yambo is also with us. She has come to be known as the data lady, and she's about to unlock and roll the data for us. Marie Yambo, if you can hear me, what are the numbers telling us?
Thank you so much, O'Brien, and good evening to our viewers. And just as you've said it, I'm known as the ladies with the data. And just as O'Brien has asked, is the NHIF in a position, to roll out its mandate as the national insurer? There are very many, mishaps here and there, but those are the things we want to unpack for you today. But before we get into the discussion itself, we want to find out what is the membership of NHIF, the proposed increments, from what to what, in terms of the salary brackets. So those are some of the numbers that we prepared for you tonight. And just to start with the Health Insurance Fund in terms of their membership. We have 14 million registered principal members, 12.9 million dependents, and a total membership of approximately 22.8 million beneficiaries. Members from the informal sector make about 10.64 million. This number of 10.64 million, does it really translate to the amount of money that the NHIF looks forward to collecting from this particular sector? Those are some of the things that our guests tonight will be explaining to us. The formal sector makes about 4.8 million, while dormant members is at 8.8 million. That is from a 5.03 million people. So again, the attrition rate for the NHIF premium is quite high. 8.8 million out of, say, 22 or so members, that is quite high. Now, as far as the contributions are concerned, so we have the current and the proposed contributions, and it depends on your salary scale, really. 8,000 to 11,999. Currently, they're paying about 400 shillings, but the proposed change is that they'll be paying between 216 and 324 shillings. If you're earning between 15,000 and 19,999, so currently you're paying 600, but as the proposed contributions, you're supposed to pay between 405 to 540. So it looks like it's really low, between 600 to about 540 here. But then again, it increases as your salary brackets increases. So if you hit about 90,000 to 99,999, which is essentially like 100,000 shillings, so that contribution again goes up. Currently, you're paying 1,600, but if this proposed reforms are adopted, then you'll be paying between 2,430 and 2,700. Definitely, if you're paying, if you're earning 100,000 shillings, 200,000 shillings, 500,000 shillings and above, then currently you're paying 1,700. But obviously, as you can see on the screens, people earning 500,000 and above will be paying 13,500 shillings. So that is as far as those proposed reforms are concerned. Now, informal sector monthly contribution currently is at 500 shillings, but as President William Ruto said, he wants it reduced to 300 shillings so that it can be affordable for them. But then again, is it possible for them to pay, being that their earnings is unpredictable? So that's another thing that we'll be discussing today. Now, in as far as the contributions are concerned, by June 2022 financial year, the collection for NHIF was at 78.84 billion shillings in terms of the premiums. This is against 90.57 billion shillings, which was the target. Again, NHIF fell short of collecting what was expected of them. So how does this in itself affect the operations? So those are some of the questions that we'll be asking our experts, and they'll be able to elaborate more for us. Now, the question of the day is how has the NHIF benefit? How has the NHIF card been of benefit to you, and how? Now, that is what we want to hear from you. So tell us, how have you benefited from the NHIF card? Has it, is it in a positive note? Then tell us how. But then again, if it's on the negative, we also want to hear what you think should be done for you to be able to access the NHIF services when you go to hospital. So those are some of the issues that we are going to be discussing tonight. So thank you so much once again for making the time to be with us tonight. O'Brien, I want to hand it over to you to introduce our guests.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Marie Ambo, there for unpacking the numbers for us. I know we shall be linking up with you so that you can give us more in regard to the responses that we are going to get. And of course, I know you're just around here, and you'll be throwing a question or two to the team that is in the studio for us tonight. I told you I have the people who will be helping us in driving this conversation forward. And I'm starting with Dr. James Wanjage. He's a change management expert. He's also a former lecturer at the University of Nairobi. And he's joining us tonight. Dr. Wanjage, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Did I say University of Nairobi?
You said University of Nairobi.
I said University of Nairobi.
I know, I was looking at you.
It is Strathmore.
Strathmore.
It is the Strathmore University.
Business school.
Business school, actually. Forgive me for that. And next to Wanjage, we have Whitney Misheni. She's a political economist joining us again tonight. Thank you very much, Whitney.
Thank you, Brent, for having me.
Very good. And next to Whitney, we have Dr. Fred Ogola. He's a policy and governance expert as well, joining us tonight as usual. Thank you very much indeed, Dr.
Thank you very much. Robert.
And you were telling me that Dr. Wanjage is a familiar face and name to you.
Actually, I know him. He was a pastor in the US. He began research there, and he came back to Kenya. And actually, I invited him to speak in one of my programs when I was in Strathmore. Then later, he got attracted and became a lecturer in Strathmore.
Wow.
Then he left me there, and now I've also joined him outside of Strathmore.
We'll break bread after this.
Yes.
So we can get to know more about this. Very good. Let's now get into the topic tonight. And I want to hear from you, Wanjage. As currently constituted, is the National Health Insurance Fund in a position to function properly and deliver the universal health coverage to Kenyans?
So, Brian, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for allowing me to come and just interact with this conversation. So, my initial thoughts are currently constituted. It can offer universal health care. The issues, the structural issues and the leadership issues that it has, of course, need to be addressed. There is regulation, and I think there's a lot of stakeholder engagement around new regulation that needs to be passed. And there's currently public participation around that. You know, what should be done around the NHIF for the future. But currently constituted, in my opinion, it can meet its mandate. We need to talk about the issues that are causing it not to meet its mandate. And I would imagine we'll talk about this later on, the structural issues. how it's set up in terms of service delivery.
Yeah.
And also the leadership issues, what's causing the scandals. And I believe you and I talked earlier and we were saying, if you've had 3 CEOs in 5 years, we have a problem.
There's a problem.
And what's that problem? So those are the things we need to address. And if they can be addressed, it would be in a position, in my opinion,
very good.
Its mandate, yes.
We'll definitely be coming back to you because we'd want to hear, when you talk about structure as well as management issues, what exactly are you talking about? But I want to turn on to Whitney. Do you believe or do you agree with the Daktari there that as currently constituted, NHIF is in a position to deliver UHC to Kenyans?
Thank you, Brian, and also a good evening to your viewers. I'll just start with some basic data which is in the public domain. 36% of Kenyans are one illness away from poverty. Secondly, when we look at the Retirement Benefit Authority, the data states that 2 in 5 pensioners spend all their lump sum money which they're paid in pensions to cover for their medical bills. We also look at, when you're looking at out-of-pocket expenditure, we see that Kenyans spend 300 billion annually in out-of-pocket expenditures for medical bills. So that just gives us context on how the cost of medical care in Kenya, how the affordability and how high it is, and also just the critical importance of NHIF in the country. So when we look at NHIFs right now, we see that it has been marred by corruption. We see that there are allegations of fraud. We also see that, as my colleague has said, we've had 3 CEOs in the last 5 years. That points to the corporate governance of NHIF. So there are a lot of structural challenges within the NHIF, and also we've seen that NHIF has been having issues remitting money to the hospitals, meaning of course the people do remit money to NHIF, but it points to illegal diversion of funds of NHIF, probably to other issues, to other charges in the consolidated fund probably. So I do believe that the structural reforms that are needed in NHIF, but currently as we speak, I do not believe that NHIF is in a position to carry the vision of universal health coverage as envisioned in the Vision 2030. Prepare
with the response on what we need to do to prepare it to carry out that mandate. What about you, Prof?
Thank you very much, O'Brien, and to our viewers who have always kept it here, as he called it, the most intelligent conversation, and I think we're not going to respond them tonight. For if you look currently constituted, I'm looking at how the fund is structured, and one thing is that 75% of the fund goes into servicing operational cost, meaning that we are only leaving as 25% going into actually hospital. So that question of how much your card is working, if you talk about the 78 billion shillings collected last year, within this year, when June is ending, imagine 75% of that money going into operational cost. These are data which we are familiar with. So second thing is that I've sat in boards, like I sit in the board of the Archdiocese of Nairobi, where we have 63 health facilities. And I chair the Finance and Strategy Committee, Finance and Investment Committee. I can tell you, O'Brien, when we are looking about the list of debtors, NHIF is #1 in debtors in all hospitals in Kenya. Now, why should they be? In fact, today there was a discussion in Parliament and saying, if NHIF has said they have a surplus of 6 billion, how come some people have never been paid? A fund is as good as paying people who need to be paid. You cannot say you have a fund and you're talking about surplus, yet you are the biggest debtor in town. So how can we put NHIF accountable to ensure that they pay people after they collect premium? Is their focus on getting surplus, maybe investing it, while hospitals are going into debt because they are not paying the money? So remittance of money is an issue. In fact, it's not just NHIF. Remittance and access of money is a big problem in this country. And I'm hoping that when the president institutes these reforms, they should go and focus on remittance of that money, the payment.
Yep.
They should go and said, they should even come by law and said, what percentage of NHIF premiums can go to operational cost and what percentage must go. If you go to institution like Kenya, they say how much can go to salary and which limit can't you pass. I think a man is meant to break the law. So a man must be told what to do and what not to do. That's why the 10 Commandments does not tell you what to do. They tell you what not to do. Do not do this, do not commit
it also
that.
tells you what to do.
Yes,
Love your neighbor.
Yeah, you have, I mean, the 10 Commandments are very clear, because that's summary, but it's more about the don'ts. So if you tell a man what to do, but don't tell them what not to do, they can do something. So I'm sure that the reforms must all go and tell us, the NHIF, what you cannot do.
What you cannot do.
And that may add more value than what to do. Yes.
Wanjagi, you are talking about structural as well as management issues at NHIF. And you're saying this is the elephant in the room that we need to get out. Would you be kind enough to outline some of these issues?
Absolutely. And even before I do that, you know, me and my professor friend here, we always have different views. When I look at data, it actually says it's between 10 and 25% that's used on operational cost. Yeah. So we need to go back and check.
Where did you get your data from?
Of course, I have analyzed. You see, if you look at the repayment, we talk about the remittance. The remittance out of the 78 billion we have there. I've told you I sit in a board of, say, 63 health facilities within Nairobi only. These guys are heading every hospital. They are the largest data. If I'm lying, you can even try to do an experiment. We can even visit a hospital. They are the largest data in town.
So you still maintain your ground?
I still maintain my ground.
You said 70 what?
78 billion they collected last year, isn't it? Between last year, June, and this June. Out of that money, only 25% has gone to repayment. They say the payment to the hospitals. Yes, and
Wanjagi, you are saying what
so
numbers?
I am saying a little different. The numbers that I have, actually, and we need to look at that, they collected in 2022 113 billion.
In 2022?
They spent service delivery.
And what is the source of your numbers?
It's open. If you go online and just Google.
I mean, Google.
Because one of the structural issues they have is they don't have data.
But
if you go to
are your
website,
numbers from a reliable source?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Yeah. Sasa. So let me ask you, Brian. Let me ask you a question. Number one, you cannot go to NHIF and get data. There's no data, right? If you go online, there's no data. So we can argue about where data comes from. Yeah. But in the absence of data, he could be right, I could be wrong. I could be right, he could be wrong. In the absence of data. But the data that I looked at, could be wrong, says 10 to 25% is what is left as operational costs. And I kept asking myself, should it be that much anyway? But, you know, it's here nor there. Let's talk about where the issues are. Because one of the issues we need to talk about is corruption in accrediting hospitals.
Corruption in the process of accreditation.
Of accrediting. So what does that mean? Currently,
and sorry, just for stepping on your shoes, because I know Marie Ambo can hear things, and she's going to be very gracious enough to help us try to understand who is right. Is it 75%? Is it 25%? You know, operational cost.
Let her check.
Marie Ambo, do you have that information?
There's something I came across, actually. There's a study that was done. It's called the Kenya National Hospital Insurance Fund Reforms, Implications and Lessons for Universal Health Coverage. And what our guests are saying, okay, what Professor is saying is more or less like what I have here. And according to them, 55%...
And who are these?
This is a study that was done by Edwin Barasa, Kamagurogo, and Jerry Maura. This was on Kenya National Kenya National Hospital Insurance Fund reforms, implications and lessons. This is about the health systems and reforms. So
and how old is that information?
Okay, it's a bit old, and but I want to believe the difference might not be very big. So they're saying about 55% is what they use for the payout. 45%.
And Professor is talking about 75.
And if I just give you some numbers, and this is true. Everyone who prints a card, if you lose your card, you have to pay 250 shillings to get another card. Meriambo, you say that there are 14 million registered.
Yes.
Each of them has a card. Just take 250 shillings times 14 million. That is 3.3 billion for printing card.
Okay.
So where does that
So
go?
if that has not been remitted now, add that to that one, you will find that this figure goes to 75%.
So your numbers are talking about 55%.
Yes, 55%.
Professor is talking about 75%.
Yes.
But
And
I
so
remember mine is just, this is 2017, somewhere.
2017. So you're talking about
so chances are that
almost 7 years back.
Yes.
All right. And
at
Jag
the
is
same
talking
time,
about 25%.
And the other thing, Meriambo, to corroborate this, talk about the total revenue of the hospitals in Kenya, and then do 20% of the 78 billion and see whether that is the total revenue for hospital. Remember, it is not. So what I'm saying,
these are numbers that we can
money
just
is not being received, and if you look at the revenue coming from the private one and remove that from the total revenue, discover that actually those money is all reaching. And witness said something very interesting, that money might not be reaching the person, but maybe it's released.
Right.
Which pipe is broken? And that's corruption now.
Thank you very much indeed, Mariambo, for bringing out those numbers, because here truth is very critical. It's very important. And, every information must be a subject of verification. Yeah. And I remember when I was a student of data, and lucky enough, used to be my lecturer back then. You said that you told me that. Data must be questioned.
Absolutely.
And so we have to question all the data. Let's continue with the conversation. You're talking about...
Brian, just hold that thought. As Prof said about the cards, the renewal of the cards when you lose it. The other thing that I really want to understand, is, when you default on your NHIF payment, and this is more for the informal sector, who are, can I say, mostly affected by the out-of-pocket, expenditure. You're supposed to pay about, is it 250? About 200 shillings? That's a penalty. Yeah. That is not going to your insurance. So that's also another, can I say, loophole, according to me, because where does this money go to?
Well, it's probably maybe, and I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here, to try and imagine that, when you look at the total revenue for NHIF in the year 2022, it was 78 point something billion shillings. And I would want to imagine that all the money that we are talking about here is what they would consider to be revenue, the penalties, the contributions, and all this much. But, that's beside the point here. But I would really want to find out, you are still helping us understand what are these issues, the two of them, so that it can help us unlock the conversation going forward. Mariambo, do you want to get a seat? And sit on the high table?
Of course.
All right. Thank you.
So I think this conversation that you brought up tells us that that is also one of the structural issues. The fact that we cannot get numbers that are verifiable means that we need to start thinking about that as a structural issue. But I was talking about, number one, there is corruption in accreditation of hospitals.
Corruption in accreditation.
It's being done at the head office. You find that private hospitals perhaps are being provided with better accreditation, because there are two things: there's accreditation and what services they can offer. Okay. Number two, the faking of the provision of services. Hospitals faking that, and we saw the news that the people are being they're showing things that people have not actually been done. Yeah, faking
misclaims.
Misclaims. When there is a limit increase, it's done manually.
Manually.
Yes. So if you go and you say, I want my limit to be increased, it's going to be done manually.
Not electronically.
Not electronically.
And
So it
despite
has
the
to
fact
go to
that
someone.
the fund says that 90% of these processes are done electronically.
The cartel issue where there are huge amounts of revenue increases, and we're talking about 10 to 20% of revenues disappearing. Nepotism, poor communication. Then we're talking about corruption. Now, a couple of years ago, they changed their format. The accreditation is done at the national level. The service administration, procedure approval, and claims is done at the branch level.
At the branch level.
Initially, everything was being done at national level. Of course, when you do that, you get issues around the speed of service.
The speed of service.
So it made sense to move everything to move
the head office.
To move things to the branch.
Or to the branch.
Yes. But with moving things to the branch comes the issues of fraud, mismanagement. I have a friend
bureaucracy.
I have a friend who is a CMO, Chief Medical Officer at a hospital. In order for a claim to be signed off by a branch manager, you needed to part with something.
Wow.
Even for accreditation.
Even for accreditation. And then there are hospitals that have muscle that are given services, and other hospitals are not given the same services. So you find people flocking to one hospital that ends up claiming and getting a lot more money than hospitals that are probably close to you.
How do you know all this?
I told you, I have a friend.
Very well.
I have a friend who ran hospitals. She's a chief medical officer and has this inside information.
Very good. That's quite mouthful. I think we need to take a break so that we can chew things, and then we'll be back with more. You're watching The Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. We're taking a short break, and thereafter we'll be back with more interesting information, because at the end of the day, the whole point is, how do we reposition? How do we re-engineer the National Health Insurance Fund into a modern day fund that will deliver this country the much talked about universal health coverage? We are back after this break.
Iwapo unakohoa, unahisi uchungu kwenye kifua, uchovu kila wakati, joto jingi mwilini, unakosa hamu ya kula au kupoteza uzito haraka bila kukusudia, na kutokwa na jasho jingi usiku, waweza kuwa waugua TB.
Milango ya gereza ilifunguka, then
Atito, cha mwenzako kikinyolewa, chako tia maji, so you are the next.
Please say purest for my
TB yaweza kuangamiza jamii yako. Usikubali. Matibabu ni bila malipo katika hospitali zote za serikali.
Biggest odds in the world every day on selected matches. Make a decision. Mozart Bet.
Usishika simu yangu bwana, umesikia?
Manake mimi askari wako walipa shingapi?
I'm not going, I'm here to stay.
You leave this house.
Hauna shughuli zingine za kufanya?
I am a man of few words.
Kisha nikome.
Beno!
Mimi.
Yes, you go!
Na mke mwingine maika naye huyu. Nenda polisi lakini.
Una kilo kichana.
Heshima unipi maika.
Pafu sana.
I'm not going to let anyone ever hurt or harm you. I'm not going to let anybody hurt you. But I am giving it to you under one condition. Every person who decides to live under this roof, my roof that is, has to live very happily. I'm just calm right now because I know that in a few days, you'll be mine forever and ever.
I need you to help me with this. Make me understand.
I'm curious, how long had you known the doctor said?
Las Bandidas.
내가 분명히 말했지, 어? 신부 확실히 마크하면서 아사리판 만들라고. 근데
어떡해요, 신부님?
아이씨, 안 보려고 나왔는데 또 보네. 아, 근데 인상을 저렇게 쓰고 어디로 가는 거야?
마지막으로 딱 한 번만, 어? 이 못난 애비 부탁 하나만 좀 들어다와.
못난 애비는 무슨...
일로와, 이 새끼들아! 다 죽었어!
Hayawi, hatimaye huwa kombe la Mozart Bet litafikia kileleni Jumamosi hii ya Julai 1. Timu mbili zilizofuzu kwenye fainali zikiwania tiketi ya kuwakilisha Kenya kwenye mashindano mashirikisho barani Afrika. Tusker na Kakamega Homeboys wakikabiliana kwenye fainali hiyo itakayogaragazwa katika uchanjao wa Kasarani Jumamosi kuanzia saa 9 kamili. Lakini kabla ya fainali hiyo, FC Leopards watapambana na Ulinzi Stars kusaka mshindi wa nafasi ya 3 kuanzia saa 6 dhuhuri uwanjani Kasarani. Usikose uhondo wa mechi hizo kwenye runinga KBC Channel 1 kuanzia saa 6 kamili. KBC Channel 1, mwandani wako wa dhati michezoni.
The scorecard is live from Broadcasting House. Our conversation tonight revolves around repositioning as well as re-engineering the National Hospital Insurance Fund to make it a modern-day fund that will deliver the universal health coverage for all Kenyans by the year 2030. And we are looking at the nooks and crannies of how to re-engineer NHIF. That is the conversation we are having tonight. And again, we are also in the company of Marie Yambo. She's now joining us to sample some of your responses and some of your feelings. Marie Yambo, please.
Indeed, the question we had asked is, has the NHIF card been of benefit to you and how? So quite a number of you responding there. Thank you so much for interacting with us. Millicent Kabai is saying, I recently used it and I paid nothing when I had absolutely nothing on me. So yes, it's helpful. Alphins Machuku, yes, very helpful. I remember when I was admitted at the KNH in 2017, it helped a lot to settle hospital bill, which is about 75,000 shillings. So quite a number of people are saying, yes, it has. It helped me during my recent surgery. Janrieta Mwaniki says, yes, can't complain so far. But Maurice is asking a question here. Why is it that some civil servants whose contribution is equal to others, then they get comprehensive cover, others or even sadly sent away? Why is the gap and unfair treatment? And maybe that's the question I want to put to our guests tonight. And is it then, because there are disparities, definitely. There are those who are paying 500 shillings, you know, currently. Most of them are in informal sector. There's this definitely the civil servant scheme, and then there's the national, scheme. So there are disparities there. And do you think that the NHIF is actually prioritizing, increasing the, can I say, the benefits, for the people who are paying more at the expense of, say, increasing the coverage for those who are uninsured?
Who would you want to respond to that?
I would start with Prof.
Prof.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, that there's no consumerate contribution. For example, look at that guy who is proposed to pay 13,000 per month. Multiply that one by 12. I'm sure you can buy yourself the best private insurance you have in the country. And if you look at what NHIF will give you, it's completely a waste of time. So as far as I'm concerned, it will be much better for the government to look for a way on which these things can be given a rate whereby everybody who has NHIF card, they should have the same quantity. I did my PhD in Spain. I was not even a citizen there. When you present a card, you get full treatment. In fact, one of the reasons why even it's painful, actually for the women, should be very keen here. I have been in a hospital as a board member, and since the time we even passed a decision that we should not be able to allow NHIF to pay, because they'll tell you, this woman has given birth, there are some injections which are essentially supposed to be done. NHIF will tell you, we don't approve that, yet it risks the life of a mother. If there's any medical doctor listening to me, they'll understand this very clearly, that these disparities are crazy. You go to hospital, you don't even know what will be approved and what will not be approved. So you cannot even know what you have a right to. And I think that's also another very serious issue we need to address.
Very good. Yeah, Whitney, you want to say something, I'm sure.
I just want to buttress Prof's point. I think we should simplify NHIF, because when you look at NHIF, there are very many dockets in NHIF. We have the Edu Afia, we have, as he said, we have Linda Mama, we also have the civil servant scheme, we also have those for the indigents who are like 5.1 million households who are totally unable to pay for NHIF. So yes, I do believe that because when we see all those schemes, I think that leads to a bit of overlap, and also some people are not sure, as Prof has said, what NHIF covers for, because at times you get there and they tell you that there's some services they do not offer, which you have to pay out of pocket. But also, how can we just improve the health sector in general, as you had asked me when I concluded my previous statement? We do know that health is devolved, so I do believe that the national government liaising with the county governments can be able to ring fence the funds for health, so that we can avoid these illegal diversions of the funds. And also, I do believe that governors should prioritize primary health care. We see that at times we go to these big hospitals, referral hospitals, or level 5 hospitals, when we just basically have a cough. Why do we do that? Because we have primary health care, which are these dispensaries which are in our constituencies, but when you go there, they don't have medicine, basic medicine, they do not have power, they do not have water, they just basically lack the basic primary health care. And also, I do believe that the government, both the national and the county governments, must prioritize in preventive health care. I think that's the way to go, especially, yeah, that's the way to go, because we also see that preventive health care, it's cheaper, other than when you have to go the curative way or the rehabilitative way. We're looking at vaccines. We're also looking at early detection, especially for women. We have some cancer cases like cervical cancer or breast cancer. I do believe that early detection could go a long way in achieving universal health care, and also just ensuring that, you know, people are able to afford health care other than going overseas, because we do know that people spend a lot of their money going into millions when they even have to fundraise to go overseas, just because they detected these diseases later. So I do believe primary health care is the place to be, and also just preventive health care, and also the national government and the county governments, that those are the things they should prioritize.
Just to add before she goes, we came up with a model when I was teaching in Strathmore on how to do a referral. If you go to a hospital and you are given a green card, you look very healthy. There are those who are given yellow, meaning that for you, you must see a patient in the next 2 hours. When you are given red, you see a patient faster. For those who are coming for almost nothing, like you said, just a cough, you show them they'll wait longer. And that brings a way of discouraging those who are just running to hospital because there is one. And if you get a red, you'll see a doctor in the 30 minutes. So that thing will start telling people that you don't just run to a hospital. You have not even checked your temperature. You just believe you have fever. You have not even checked your temperature. You have to find other means to do it. But as I agree with you, we need to enhance the primary healthcare and preventive healthcare, so that Not that level 5 is working, but level 1, level 3, level 4 is working all the way. When I'm in places like Siaya, hospitals are buildings, literally, just a building. There's no water, there's nothing else apart from building. Even panels are not there.
And this is something that we need to debunk, that a hospital is not more of a building than the services that are offered there. Because people go to hospitals for services, not for the facilities. And this is where I want to hear from Wanjagi. You have stayed in the US, and they have some sort of a national health insurance system. It may not be the best, but it works for them. What do we need to, how do we need to retweak NHIF to make it meet the medical health need of Kenyans?
So thank you, Brian. And I think by answering that question, I'll also make a comment on what Maria was talking about. First, the issue of open data. So when a patient goes and does not know what is covered, and they're told this is not covered here, that is a problem. But it's a simple fix. I mean, I should be able to know from my card, and if it's through an app, that this and this is covered. B, I should be able to know which hospital I can go to. That's what mature health systems like in the US do. Okay, so that's a simple fix. Make sure there is information that supports the services that are being provided. You fix that, you begin having opportunities where people don't say, look, I don't know whether this is covered. They go through a really rigorous and painful process. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? I think number two is really the health centers. How do you decentralize and bring the services closer to the people? Okay, so and I see a little bit of that happening where we have dispensaries and we are opening a little bit of health centers. Bring the services closer to the people so that I don't have to go 15, 20 minutes to look for service. I should be able to walk out and get my service almost immediately wherever I am. So that's some of the things that I think we should be talking about. May I just add on the 13,500 issue? As long as we're getting the full, and I'll call it enchilada of services, I don't mind paying 13,500 if that is my bracket. And that there is transparency around how the money is being spent. When we've been arguing here around, figuring out how money is being dispersed, and my prof friend is saying, look at how the challenges of even getting to that money when you claim.
Yeah.
It means we have a problem of transparency. And so from a leadership perspective, how do we start the transparency where there's open information? You should be able to go and see how much money was spent and where it was spent. Yeah? And when we begin doing those kind of things, and then making sure that our leaders are following value-based leadership,
it will work.
Yes.
But also, can we also understand, because, I mean, NHIF is an institution, and an institution is as good as the management, and the management is as good as the society. That is a simple principle. And when you talk, when you listen to, experts, they will tell you that, there's a lot of fraud and misclaims that are perpetuated by private hospitals. Okay, and so it takes two to tango. So how then do we address the deficit that we suffer as a society of trust, and number one, of how would I call that?
We're facing a crisis of trust.
Of trust.
Yes, it's a crisis of trust. Three things: people, process, technology.
Yeah.
We have a people problem.
Yeah.
How do we fix the people problem? It's a social problem. It's not an individual NHIF problem. You get into that space, you will find cartels and you'll be forced to do things you don't want to do. It's a people problem. Value-based leadership. Process. We have a lot of processes that are open to abuse. Okay? We don't have, perhaps the controls are there, but they're not enforced. Great point. Number three, technology. We should have less of manual processes and automation of of systems to the point where things are real time and you can get information as quickly as possible. When a scandal happens, we find scandals 1, 2, 3 years later is when we say, oh, scandal happened, right? Why? We need to be able to say, there's a scandal brewing currently, how do we fix it? Leading versus lagging indicators. So oftentimes we spend 3, 4 years, oh yeah, scandal happened 2 years ago. And that's when you're trying to fix it. You can't fix it 2 years ago. I can't call Prof 2 years later on and say you stole. It needs to be real time.
Yeah. So, Brian, I have a very, how you call revolutionary approach to this. According to me,
revolutionary.
What do we need in hospital? We need a doctor. We need a medicine. Why are you giving me a card?
Equipment.
If you go to, for example, to developed countries like Scandinavian countries, put medicine in the hospital, put a doctor in the hospital, put facilities. Why are you giving me a card? By being a citizen, go and get treatment. Yeah. Because this card, I've told you, we are printing a card costing 4 billion shillings in printing a card. Are we in the business of printing card offering treatment?
Yeah.
When you're giving this where there's a fund, someone to approve something, we are bringing corruption. I was in Spain. There's no government that gives a fund. There's no fund. But government takes the budget, when people are paying these things, put medicine in the hospital. The same thing we have with the education system, where the CDF, you are giving people a check, then people have to buy the check. For example, if you give a CDF check of 20,000 shillings MPs, you have to pay somebody 2,000 shillings to begin a check for 10,000 shillings. Why don't the government go and put books, teachers, pencils in class, then you go to school? Why should there be a preference who can get this, who cannot get that? Those things don't work. According to me, I've seen the best system in Scandinavian. Put medicine in the hospital, put a doctor there, put equipment, put facilities. You go there, get it and go away. Why are you talking about fund, printing cards and the rest?
Very good.
I think for me, it is the same thing which we have created so that we can actually steal money. But the most transparent way, put medicine in hospital. Why should your mother not tell you, for you, you have access to omena at home, for you, you can have ugali at home. Why don't you just cook dinner, eat dinner, and go away? Why should someone be given access to a card? You can eat this one, you can eat that one. Those are things which is a waste of time.
That's a very interesting analogy there on omena. Yes, Whitney, and even as you respond to the issue of omena, you can also give us an idea then, how do we make NHIF responsive to Kenya's medical needs?
Thank you for that. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to I think Prof is just going so far away in Europe. When we look at when we're talking about universal health coverage, we can easily benchmark with a member of EAC. Rwanda have done it and they're still doing it very well. So if it's a matter of benchmarking and see what's working, and also we're just talking about the East African community and integration, we can just look at Rwanda because they're implementing the universal health coverage pretty well, and it's working for the citizens.
But even before you proceed, I mean, Whitney, is it that NHIF is not working optimally because it cannot work, or it has been made not work? It has been designed not to work.
Yeah, it's deliberate, of course, as my colleague on my right has said. It all has to do with corporate governance. So yeah, but yeah, exactly. And we're looking at Rwanda, we can see that the political goodwill is there. So yes, that's to do with the people's issues. Okay, so secondly, to your question, how can we make NHIF better? When we're looking at NHIF, of course, we're also talking about other players in this health sector. We're talking about KEMSA. KEMSA is a very big player in delivering universal health coverage because they do provide the drugs and they also provide other medical supplies. So we're looking at KEMSA. We've also seen KEMSA has been riddled with fraud, corruption, and also issues of corporate governance. So we're looking, if we're talking about KEMSA, we're also asking ourselves, should we devolve the issue of supplying of drugs and also other medical equipment? Secondly, we're also seeing that in hospitals when probably I go to the level 2, 3, 4, when you go there, you probably don't find medication. But what you will find is that the medical staff are colluding with other people in the sector so that they can have, you can be told to go buy drugs at private pharmacies outside the hospitals. So what you can do to better NHIF and also just the universal health coverage is getting into performance contracts with the medical providers, giving them just some indices on how they what shows that they've performed well, so that you can renew the contract. So just KPIs and just checking that their contracts, they meet their contracts. So yes, those are just a few ways.
There's something here we have as a country, and people, when you hear now like what my brother James has said, that even you, if you're put now as the claim director at NHIF, he says you'll find that people will force you to do things you don't want. Yet everything is president, Kenya Kwanza, minister. You know, first of all, Kenyans, we need to be real people. Do you know what's happening? Somebody uses a Kenyan to be corrupt, then you blame the government, you blame the president. Yeah. We have to start from family. What is our values as a people? What are you telling your kids? Like now, I'm sure my son might be watching me on television. What does he believe I believe in? What do we believe as a community? Because in Kenya, we are divided into this community, this political group, that political group. Yeah. And therefore, when someone steals, he's stealing for one political group, so that political group should be happy with stealing. If this other one doesn't steal, why are we not given a chance to steal? So I'm saying that we need to change our own thing. Values, what are you trained? And in fact, Brian, this goes to education. Yeah. I was in school on Saturday trying to select school for my son, and I discovered education can be cognitive. There is affective, which means what are your values, what are your beliefs, what is your heart? Because cognitive is the head. Yeah. And also there's what called psychomotor. How physically are you? And then spirituality. Do you know in Kenya, we only care A or B or C, cognitive only. We don't know what you believe. That's why we have medical doctors, we have lawyers, we have professionals, even professors who have no ethics, but they have A's. That they became a doctor because they were good in cognitive. They never knew the practice. In fact, the question you ask, what can we do? When I was beginning the whole thing in Strathmore, the healthcare, we said health insurance need to put doctors to be in charge of medical insurance schemes. Who knows the doctors who know how to cheat the system, and still they can see them much better. Set a thief to catch a thief. NHIF here, you find that the people who are in charge of those claims are not doctors, so they can know what is paracetamol. You find somebody in a ward for 2 days and they are taking 20 paracetamol. As a medical doctor, you can tell, no, there must be something. No one can take augmenting 3 doses, because augmenting is a serious antibiotic. You cannot be given twice in a week. So you require competent people in that process. So we need competent people who can tell. In medical practice, you cannot take 10 Panadols in 3 days. Very good. You can't take augmenting in 1 week. Because we are wrapping up and see time is really spent, and I can see Marie Yambo is going through the responses by Kenyans. But before we go to our scorecarding questions, Wanjige, how do we deal with thieves' conundrum?
Thieves' conundrum. But number one, again, I just go to, and I really agree with Prof on people, instilling ethos and values as a system, and it starts early. Okay. We also need to say, are we paying the employees well enough for them to deter?
But how well is well?
That's a question. So that's a very subjective question.
Conundrum,
we need to ask ourselves.
It's also another conundrum.
Yeah, we need to ask ourselves how well is well, define that, and then consequences. Choices have consequences. So let's see how these branch managers that have been fired plays out. You probably find they won't end up in court, or they might find their way back. Okay. Choices have consequences, and they need to be to the point where someone recognizes I should not be able to do that again. So a combination of family values, ethos, but also consequences is going to be important.
Ensuring that people pay for their misdeeds.
People pay for their mistakes and for
and people appreciate it.
And
to make corruption
absolutely.
expensive.
And we recognize that this doesn't start at the top only. It is also middle management. It is also at the bottom there. We're very quick to get rid of
other family
branch
units.
managers. When I was talking to my friend, they mentioned that the person who does reconciliation and the claims officer is not the branch manager. But for them to reconcile for you so that you get paid, you have to pay them. So when we are fixing this problem, it needs to be, in fact, if I was there, just completely get rid of everyone, rehire. I'm sure someone is going to get me in trouble for that. But rehire. Go through people and find out.
You rehire them.
You rehire them. And you find out, because people have been there 10, 15 years.
But
that's
you also,
part of the problem.
You also know that you cannot fire people en masse. I mean,
no. You can
there are laws to protect people.
You can find consultants that can help you fix that problem. Trust me.
Very good. Well, gentlemen and lady, I mean, we are coming to the end of this conversation, but not before, we go through our scorecarding questions, and there are two of them, and I want to start with Whitney Misheni. And the first question that we're asking tonight is NHIF responsive to Kenya's health needs?
Okay, thank you for that. I would score NHIF.
First of all, what is the answer?
1.
No, is it responsive? Is it not?
It's not responsive.
It is not responsive.
Yes, it's not responsive. So I give them a 1. The issue of accountability comes in very handy. We've seen that the issues of corporate governance, the issues of fraud, and also the issues of corruption. So I would give it a 1.
So Whitney, you're assigning NHIF 1 out of 5. What about Prof? Is NHIF responsive to Kenya's health needs?
I think the only grade which is the least there is 1, so I gave it 1, because no one goes to bed saying they have NHIF. Why I'm trying to say so, you saw the figures there showing somebody said that NHIF settled is 75,000 bill. What you don't know is that the hospital was not paid that money.
Very good.
Which is the most important. The service provider didn't get the money. That's why they're in debt.
Very good. What about Wanjeki?
I'd give it a 3, and I'll tell you why.
Give it a 3?
Let me tell you why. In my opinion, the issue is not service delivery. The issue is how it's structured and some of things like SLAs.
Very good.
But they are providing services. Look at the comments. They're providing services and people appreciate it.
And shortly we are going to the comments. And then the final question is NHIF positioned to deliver the universal health coverage? Let's start with Prof.
Yes, the main intention that without health financing, you cannot deliver universal health coverage. In fact, the reason why NHIF still remains that can offer hope is that it's the only remaining opportunity to be able to sort out the issue of universal health coverage.
Give it what?
I'll give it a 3.
You give it a 3?
Yeah. It is positioned.
It is positioned.
Whether it is delivering, another story.
Very good. Whitney.
Currently, as we speak, I would give it a 2. It is positioned, as Prof said, but the current management is they're not doing the job.
Very good.
Yes.
Wanjeki.
Positioned, 3. Structure.
3.
Yes. Issue of structure and management.
So you're also giving it 3.
Yeah.
You're agreeing with Prof?
For the first time, we agree.
Very good. So I think when we do an aggregate of you're scoring, it looks like a yes. In terms of possession, all the 3 of you do agree that NHIF is well positioned to deliver the UHC. But when it comes to whether NHIF is responsive to Kenya's health needs, this is where the numbers don't look very good. We now want to go to the scoreboard so that we can hear people's responses from Marie.
Indeed, O'Brien, we have very many responses tonight. We might not be able to read all of them, but nevertheless, we really are grateful that you've been able to take your time and really interact with us. Now, Job Mutanda on Facebook is saying, not all, in fact, since 2011, we were being deducted 300 shillings. This is something to do with the one of the companies anyway. So Steve Othoth says, yes, paid over 50K twice to my spouse, but the government must rid of corruption from the fund. Exactly what you were talking about, some of the loopholes and why those monies are not getting to where they need to be. Rafael Rotono says no, poor services. So he's not agreeing with whether NHIF has been of benefit to him. Edwin Rotich says not at all public hospitals. And Evans is saying, for me, it's actually painful. I'm not so sure what that means, but yes. Yes, and Degwa Gideon says, yes, much. So varied reactions from our viewers, and just as we've had it also from our panelists, it's also been varied reactions in terms of whether NHIF is in position to actually deliver on its mandate or not. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. My name is Marie Yambo O'Brien Kimani.
Very good indeed, Marie Yambo, for taking us through the responses by Kenyans. Quite unfortunate that we are coming to the end of this conversation, but it was actually getting better. Time has never been enough on the screen, and that's why we have to wrap it up for now. The whole point of this program is to highlight the challenges and, of course, try to offer solutions. And that's what we have done right here on the scorecard. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Gentlemen and a lady, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us, and of course for sharing with us your expertise. Your time is highly appreciated. Thank you very much for joining and for watching. Have a good night. Maria Sanchez.